we're about to hear from some of the greatest sportsmen and greatest people that this city and this country has ever produced. That we're here for a night about the best. The best you can be, the best you can achieve, in some cases, the best that's ever been.
So without further ado, as a double act tonight, the manager of the 1967 team, Mr. Bobby Brown, and the goal scorer, Jim McCalliog. Please give a huge, warm Aberdeen welcome to another goal scorer in that famous game, Mr. Bobby Lennox. Now, the hero, the legend, and the reason we're all here tonight, please give a huge round of applause for the other goal scorer in that famous game, Mr. Denis Law. Thank you.
When we celebrate being the best, we go back to that magical spring, not summer, in 1967, and the pathé real of the achievement that these men brought to all of us at Wembley as the Wizards beat the world champions and made Scotland the best team in the world. Roll the film, please. Mr. Brown, what was the build-up to Wembley like? Because now it looks natural. With these three guys and 8 others at your disposal, it looks, of course, we were going to beat England. But how did you choose not only your 11, but for example, how did you choose the man in central midfield, Mr. McCalliog, who, if I remember correctly, had an unknown called Jim Baxter to his left, and an up-and-coming guy called Billy Bremner to his right. Why Jim McCalliog, manager? Why?
Well, of course, quite naturally, the overwhelming desire was of England to humiliate the Scots, according to the pundits down in the south. In fact, one actually wrote, if I can recollect, something like, England will humiliate the Scots and relegate them to a minor international team. Now, nothing like that could infuriate or raise the dander of the Scots more than reading that. While they were outstanding favourites, I didn't actually agree with that, because in those days I had a group of very good Anglo-Scots playing every week against the English counterparts. At the same time, in Scotland, we had a very vibrant Scottish league where at least 6 teams could win the league, including Aberdeen, with all players who were household names. So therefore, I felt that going into this game, I could get 11 players that would give the world champions a game. So I set about going around the country, looking at players, and at the end of the day, formulating my team in this way. The one concern I had really at that time was in goal. We didn't have a goalkeeper who had been a consistently goalkeeper for Scotland, and I felt that on the day, it demanded experience, and I felt that Ronnie Simpson, who incidentally had been my ball boy many, many years before that, when I played for Queen's Park, I felt that with his experience of Celtic, even at 34 years of age, and the European competitions, I felt that he would be the anchor as far as that was concerned in goal. At right back, I felt that I wanted someone with strength, character, and big Tom Gemmell, who would go through a brick wall and who was a great tackler and a 90-minute man. Excellent to overlapping if required. I felt that he would go in at right back. On the other side, by contrast, to balance the side, I had a player called Eddie McCready from Chelsea. a wonderful left foot, the most educated left foot that I have ever seen in football. Positional sense was excellent. Good shouter from the point of view of keeping men in order. So he was on my left back. Now, in between, I had to have a dual centre half. There were two lots open for that, and that was John Gregg and Ronnie McKinnon of my old club Rangers, and also Billy McNeil and John Clark at Celtic. Many of the scribes of the day favoured Billy and John Clark. As far as I was concerned, I'd seen more of the other two, so therefore I chose them. My mid three to combat the English. On the right-hand side was Billy Bremner, a tenacious, up-and-atom player, often described as 10 stone of barbed wire. He was on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, to counter that, I wanted a player I'd seen many times, and that was Jim Baxter. Now, Jim could run a game. He was a wonderful player on the ball, silky, wonderful passer, always up with the forwards, and he could get you a goal when you required it. Now, in between these two was a problem, because I wanted an attacking team, and I wanted someone who had a good engine, someone who could run for 90 minutes, be up with the forwards, back with my defence. I'd seen a young boy play, and I was very impressed, young Jim McCalliog. So I gave him the opportunity in there, and he was the star of the team. But having said that, his selection wasn't altogether popular with a lot of the pundits. I thought he was too young for this type of game. I didn't, and Jim certainly didn't let me down. Now, up front, I really wanted Jimmy Johnson, but he was hurt. Willie Wallace of Celtic, he was scoring goals for Celtic in European competitions, so I felt he merited his place on the right wing. On the other side was young Bobby Lennox. Now, Bobby had a great skill from the point of view, he always came back and he was looking for maybe a throw out from the goalkeeper or a pass into an open space. He was there for it. You could always find him. In addition to that, he had great pace. You could take on the fullback, and he was good for a goal. Now, between the two was probably the best player who's ever represented Scotland, and that was Denis. Now, Denis, at that time when I saw him, he was labouring a bit with Manchester United because he'd had a few injuries, and he was playing slightly deeper. On the day, I wanted Denis to be right up front with Jackie Charlton taking him on as English centre-half, and also Moore on the other side. And Denis did that to perfection. He was up there. His goal is evidence of that, because it was a save from Banks, which the ball rebounded, and Denis, quick as a flash, put it in the net. So there it was, my team, set up to play an attacking game, and they did it to perfection. When I say that they started the game in complete control, they never at any time lost it, and I was terribly proud of them. It gave me a wonderful result.
Manager. Manager, I told you this afternoon that we had an intelligent football audience. And so I'm glad I didn't have to ask for the round of applause that deserved. Nor am I here to advertise on your behalf, but I believe there's a senior SFA executive in the house, Mr. McRae. Are we still looking for a manager? and manager, are you still available if called? No. If called. That's a yes. Mr. McCalliog, do you recognise the inspirational words of a man who was running his first ever football international as coach, as manager, as the guy who was choosing the team? Is that the kind of rousing speech that Mr. Brown gave in the Wembley dressing room that afternoon?
No, not really. The boss just walked around and had a few quiet words with everybody. We didn't have a lot of tactical discussion. I didn't think it really merited that. I think Bobby Brown, the gaffer, picked a team to win the game. He picked players that, in my opinion, were as good as England, and England were a great side because obviously they'd won the World Cup. No, we got on with it. The dressing room was very confident, especially when we met on the Thursday. Myself personally, as the youngest, I just watched them on the ball. I just watched how confident they were. They weren't afraid. There was no, we're not good enough to play England or anything like that. The banter was fantastic. The boys were in full voice, really. And as the youngest, I knew it would be fine.
You'd spent your whole life playing in England, your whole life up until the 20 years and 6 months you were when you debuted for Scotland against England at Wembley. And I know you weren't intimidated by Bobby Charlton or Nobby Stiles. So which players, when you met up with them, did make your heart skip a little beat? Were they the guys on your own team?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like, as it's proved in history, Denis, Bobby Lennox, and Jim Baxter and Billy Bremner, I think they're as good as anybody that's been produced in X amount of years, whatever years you want to talk about, in the UK and also in world football, because they've proven that. Denis Law, European Footballer of the Year, Bobby Lennox, Lisbon Lion, Jim Baxter, possibly until he broke his ankle in Vienna, was right up there. I remember being at Chelsea as a kid, and Denis and Jim was playing for the rest of the world v England. So we were certainly up there. We weren't bothered about England at all. My opinion is that we fancied ourselves strong. And if I was a gambler then, I'd have bet.
Bobby Lennox, he's talking about you. He's talking about you. Aye, you.
Who was?
Jim's talking about you as one of the greats of all time, not just one of the greats of Celtic, one of the greats of Scotland, but a fabulous footballer. And Jim's opinion, good as it is backed up by Alfredo Di Stefano, who that same year said that, albeit Jimmy Johnson was the man in his testimonial, Di Stefano, in the Bernabeu, that everybody chanted his name. Di Stefano said that you were the player he feared. When you came to playing England in Wembley, a couple of weeks before you'd go on to win the European Cup with Celtic, what was your attitude? Did you think it'll be no problem at all at Wembley? Did you have a point to prove? Were the English somebody that you wanted to pull down a peg or two, given that they were the world champions? Or was it just an ordinary game of football?
I think the thing was, what got to me more than anything was my second cap, and Denis hadn't played in my first cap. And I was absolutely thrilled at the thought I was going to be in the same dressing room as Denis Law. And that was one of the first things. And the day we arrived, I came down the stairs from my room, and Denis and Jim Baxter were sitting in the restaurant. And the two of them shouted, "Come on, me man, give your pa, come on over, you know." And it just made my whole trip. That was the most wonderful thing that happened to me on the trip.
Do you remember the patter you gave them, or
That's not a day with you.
No, okay. This is a truth-telling salon. Bobby and I rehearsed that earlier on. There's No. If there are any more good lines tonight, it's a fluke. Did you sing as you were driving up in the bus to Wembley? Because that was your habit.
No, I think with the boys at Celtic Park was sung every time, but it was a newness with the boys in that team. A lot of us hadn't played together, so there wasn't much singing going on. But I did see my dad sitting on the stairs before we arrived, and that was a big
Sitting on the stairs where, Bobby?
outside Wembley. In the Wembley, when the team buses got up, I managed to see my dad, and that made my trip as well. So it was great.
Talk about what that means, though. So people, for those who have grown up in an era where we no longer play the home internationals, where when we play England, we lose, which is inconceivable given the company that we're in. What was that trip down to Wembley like then for the paying punters, for your family?
Well, I think I've saved up for 2 years to go to Wembley, and it was just a great occasion for everyone. But when you talk about the players that we had, before the game, we had 4 of the most experienced Anglos playing down in England, with the best young player in England coming into the team, with 4 guys going to play in the European Cup final, and with 2 other guys going to play in the European Cup Winners' Cup final. So it couldn't have been bad, what the kind of team we had. Although the English ridiculed us before it, I don't think the team was a bad team.
Sir Denis, as I think you should be known, the freedom of the city is just one small step towards your proper title. Bobby's made a point there, because I'm not sure, because you're so... The people that you work with at Manchester United have become more than simply friends or teammates. And therefore, I'm quite sure that after 1966, where you famously were delighted for England to have won the World Cup, I'm absolutely sure that Nobby Stiles and Bobby Charlton hadn't said a word about their triumph leading up to the game. And that, again, for you, I ask the straight question, was it just another game to play England at Wembley in 1967?
I would say that the game against England is not just another game. This is an important game, and particularly with them being the world champions as well. And you don't have to give any sort of, way to play the game. You just go out there and battle. And that was what we always did against England. And we played extremely well in that game. Don't you think, well, I've got to come back to Manchester United on the Monday with Bobby Charlton and Nobby Stiles saying, if they'd won, oh dear. So there was no way that was going to happen. This was going to be a battle. And I don't care.
Now, we've seen a small pathé reel of it, Denis, but when we talked through just about every minute of the game this afternoon, your memory was pinpoint about most of it, but you scored the first goal, and I asked you, how on earth, having seen you score every type of goal imaginable, for Huddersfield, Manchester City, Manchester United and Scotland, fewer for 2-0 because I wasn't alive at the time, but your reaction off the greatest goalkeeper in the world, Gordon Banks, is lightning fast. It's astonishing. Were you prepared for the rebound? How did that first goal happen?
Excuse me, I never liked goalkeepers. No, I like our own goalkeeper, but not the opposition goalkeepers. And no matter who they are, Gordon Banks or whatever, we want to score against them. That is it. And we went out that day at Wembley against the world champions, and we were going to get going. And if we play well, we could turn them over. So it was the fact that I was dreading coming back to Old Trafford on Monday if they had beat us. Can you imagine Bobby Charlton and Nobby Stiles like, oh, what about you lot, whatever. No, we weren't, no. No, we went out and then beat them. And don't forget, they had won the World Cup the year before, which I've never seen anyway. Even today, I've never seen it. So it was just lovely. It was fantastic to get the young players into the team as well and perform as we did. And we could have beat them by a bit more. I wish we had, actually, because I never forgot the time when we slipped down a wee bit at Wembley a few years before. Does anybody remember the score? No, I can't either. I think it was quite a lot.
But so Dennis, we've won World Cup and they've won World Cup. So it's 66 them, 67 us.
Yeah, but of course.
93 it was.
Well, I never listened to him anyway during whatever team talk he would give me anyway. He didn't need anything doing, but it was fantastic for him to lead us on a victory there. And 94 as well, eh? Isn't he look well? No, you...
So, and the manager, Dennis, picked exactly the right team because once Bobby had scored, I mean, thanks to you, it had been 1-0 for 78 minutes. And this is a match in which Scotland are playing the world champions and it finishes 3-2. Bobby, your goal, a fantastic strike, but you have a little doubt about whether the Pathé reel that we've just seen...
That wasn't the goal.
It wasn't the goal.
That wasn't the pass for the goal. The goal came from a free kick. Jimmy Baxter played it in and it got headed out. And I think Big Tam headed it back in. And I managed to
Fake news even then.
I think that's what happened.
But it was a beautiful strike all the same, right?
Thank you very much.
Where's Graham, Tom? Graham, you can have my fee back. Bobby's doing all the work. That was... I think it's useful for everybody here tonight to understand that was only your second cap. At that stage, you still hadn't won the European Cup. You weren't a Lisbon Lion. When you strike the ball, when it goes in, it goes past Gordon Banks, as Denis has pointed out, a year before, the supreme goalkeeper in the world. He's going on in 70 to save that header from Pelé. When you strike it, what does that feel like? Do you remember the celebration? Did you think of your dad who'd been sitting on the steps outside?
If I'd kept running, my dad said if I'd kept running, I'd been up to stand beside him. He was right opposite where I was. But I remember shouting, "Don't bother diving, Banks, he's behind you."
And Pathé cut that sound file right out. Jim, just like you said, 3 greats. Before your goal, we spoke this afternoon over a cup of tea. Describe for me the experience at 20, irrespective of the game and who you're playing against. I suspect a lot of people here will have heard the name Jim Baxter and will have heard the name Billy Bremner. You were running the midfield, not them. What were they like as men? What were they like as footballers? Why, specifically, in your view, are they remembered as greats?
Well, Billy was so tenacious. He was very, very Scottish so far as he always wanted to win. And Leeds were a team that was inbred. And Billy was like that. But Slim Jim, he was something else. I remember playing a game against him when I was at Sheffield Wednesday, and he was at Nottingham Forest. And I seen him outside, and I was talking to him. And before he left me, he says, "I'll see you in the arena." And I thought, the arena? Yeah, okay, Jim. Yeah, but that was Slim Jim. And I remember when I went to meet all the guys. I think we met on the Thursday before the game on the Saturday. And I remember Jim coming to me and saying, "Hello, Jim." He says, "You'll be all right, son." He put his arms around me. And, of course, when I seen Denis arrived as well. Denis says, "You'll be fine, son." Well, I'd never met Bobby. And most of the rest of the guys, except for Billy Bremner and Eddie McCready, I'd never met before. So for the gaffer to turn us around into a team, I give him a lot of credit because he picked the team. It was his choice. A lot of people said that I was a gamble, including Mr. Willie Waddle, who I respect, was a footballer himself, was a journalist. But at the end of the day, the gaffer made the choice, and his choice was to play me in midfield.
Gaffer, if I may redirect Jim's praise towards you.
Sorry?
if I can direct Jim's praise towards you, you made two very big choices. One was Ronnie, your former ball boy, in goal for his first cap, and Jim in centre midfield, and both of them worked brilliantly. I want to ask you two things. When you made those choices, were you nervous, or were you completely clear that they were the right choices? And when you were watching the game, what were your emotions in the last 12 minutes as 1-0 finished 3-2?
Well, in answer to the first question, I always felt it was my own person. I mean, the pundits and the press, they can tell you what you've got to do, etc., before the game, but at the end of the game, you never hear from them. So, I quickly learned that to be my own person. That's the first thing. The second thing is talking about Jim Baxter. Now, Jim Baxter, I mean, he could run a game on his own. He could really, but he could be a damn nuisance at times, and he was in the late second half of that match because he started to play keepy up. And I remember Denis roaring at him because we were so much on top. It was 3-1. And Denis had had a couple of great shots, magnificent save by Banks. Otherwise, it had been 5-1. And here was Baxter playing keepy up in the game. Now, he was a great player, and he quite rightly gets all the accolades. But having said that, when I watched him, and I watched him a lot, the biggest mistake I think he made was leaving Rangers, because he was never, ever the same player when he went to Nottingham Forest. And I say that because I watched him a lot. And when he was in a struggling team, he was quite a different player. But you give him a player in a team that was going forward, there was no better in the world. Absolutely first class. And I saw all that, and it was for that reason that I wanted him doing what he could do best at Wembley, and he didn't let me down.
Bobby Lennox, as well as scoring a fantastic goal, one of the goal scorers for England was portrayed as something of a hero, Jack Charlton, because he played with a broken toe, scored a goal, all this kind of nonsense. Now, Bobby, I know, but do you remember how Big Jack broke his toe?
I remember exactly how he broke his toe.
Go on then. Go on then.
He came charging out in the middle and lunged at me, and his boot caught me in the knee, and his stud had a flaw in it, and the stud went up into his boot and broke his toe. If it hadn't happened, I'd have had a broken leg, so I wasn't sorry for him, to tell you the truth. It was actually Billy Bremner that said he had a photograph down at Ellen Road of the challenge. That's how I knew about it.
And it cost you. I mean, you were a hard man as well as a brilliant footballer.
Oh, I was a hard man.
We'll be back on singing in a minute. Watch out.
Oh, right, okay.
Engelbert Humperdinck will come up, and you know I mean it. That did cost you because, I mean, without going too graphic about how much blood you lost, the foul, or the incident between the two of you left you not able to enjoy the post-match and in some difficulty for a couple of days, right?
I had a brand new suit, a new grey suit, and the blood kept oozing through. It was murder.
And that's the non-graphic version.
When it started to get better, I kept picking the scab off so it would keep the blood on the suit. It happened at Wembley.
I'm sorry, again, I know that there is a high-ranking SFA official in the house. You owe Bobby Lennox a suit.
Exactly.
And maybe a blood transfusion. Denis, Sir Denis, you're known as the king for a reason. And I think it began with us, the Scots, not with Manchester United. Tell me your pride in the way that your team played that day, the way that you played that day, the feeling of going to Wembley and winning with style. And I ask that because I know that you're not fantastically fond of being praised, but you've represented to us in your nation hugely style and cool And as well as being a brilliant footballer, you are what we all want to be. Now, that day, what did that feel like to come away from Wembley as a man playing in England and having won?
Well, I can only say, and I've said it before, there wasn't in those particular days a bigger game than playing against England, whether it be at Hampden, but more so at Wembley. And the fact that they had won the World Cup, this was a game that we would go down there and try our best, no matter who they were. And to get a result against the world champions at their own ground as well was something. And all the guys who were in the team played so well that, and as you say, with Jim keeping up and all that, I got onto him and said, hey, don't mess about, we want to beat him a lot. We want to give him a right hammering. Sorry about the son-in-law.
Too late.
Sorry about that, yeah. But we did. And we could have done. If he hadn't have kept the ball up and fiddled about, we could have really given him a battering.
And let me ask this question now. Battering aside, you scored every type of goal we've all seen across your career. The one that the manager talked about and we saw in the film, where you've tried to chip Gordon Banks, and it's a beautiful effort. It's a Phil Mickelson lob. It's judged perfectly.
Did you say that, Bobby? Did you actually say that? Did you say that?
He said that...
I'll put it this way. I would never shoot outside the penalty area. I wouldn't have reached a goal. So in that sort of area, 10 yards or whatever, it wasn't too bad, yeah. But I can't remember him congratulating me on that one, yeah.
And Gordon Banks gets a long fingernail to it. Otherwise, that is going in to be one of the great goals of your career.
Well, that would have been lovely, wouldn't it? Oh, yeah.
But you never like goalkeepers.
Get that Jonathan, yeah, where is he? Yeah. Have you heard this? Don't you be doing it anyway. No, but to be fair, let's look back. It was a fantastic result for Scotland. And normally after a game you have a sort of maybe a half a beer or whatever, don't you? I think we had a wee bit more that time, yeah. So it was lovely. Lovely to beat them, yeah.
Jim, is that true of you? A couple of beers? Jim McCalliog,
you have to be
after...
very careful what you say nowadays, don't you?
There were no handy phones at the time.
No.
Mr. McCalliog, post-match, did you celebrate with a couple of beers or champagne, or how did it go? Whoops. Also not rehearsed.
Although I was the youngest, unfortunately, I didn't drink. So...
hold on. You were definitely born in Scotland, right?
Yeah, this is true. I never had a drink till I was 23.
No? You changed days, have you?
Until 23 minutes past the hour, or... Sorry.
Oh, 23 years of age.
So you remember everything about the post-match.
Yes.
And as we wrap up, what was the post-match? We've just become world champions. What is the story after that game?
The story was really, we're in the dressing room and we're absolutely euphoric. We totally loved it, but what was nice was when the game had finished, we went back to the hotel, and then we went to the Savoy Hotel to meet the England team, which was nice, and we had a few drinks with them.
If Jim wasn't holding the microphone, it would have been, which was nice.
And it was nice to meet Sir Alf, and he's just got beaten.
Famously a fan of the Scots, Sir Alf, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember doing a sportsman's dinner, and I remember Norman Hunter telling me about Sir Alf, and it was his first international, under 23 international. It was actually here at Pittodrie, and Alf used to go round his players, and he used to put his hand on the shoulder and talk to them. And Norman, what Sir Alf said to Norman, his first under 23 international, was put his hand on his shoulder. He says, Norman, dear boy, I'd like you to kick the out of the Scottish lads today. Thank you, Norman.
Rhymes with duck.
So that was the way it was. That was completely, absolutely. But the best memory I have of all of this that I can remember was that when we were out in the tunnel, and Nobby Stiles, who we later met at a sportsman's dinner, and he was actually talking about the King. And what he said was, I looked over to the King to see if he would say hello, acknowledge me, because Nobby was quite a young player then as well. Nobby was only maybe perhaps 23, 24. And Denis blanked him. Totally blanked him. And Nobby thought, Jesus Christ, you know, this is war. This is war. That's, you know, but he went out on the field. When the game was finished, he said, the first player to come near me was the King.
Please. Before we go on with the auction, we're going to come round once more, but I need to finish with you because war it might have been. But there were, before we come to you, manager, war it might have been, Jim, but there were exchanges of good favours afterwards. Whose jersey did you get and how did you get it? Yes, please.
I didn't get any jerseys.
So, Jimmy Greaves?
No,
Pardon me, Bobby.
I'm sorry. I'll hand that over to you again.
Jim, give that mic back to Denis now. Come on.
What was the question?
The question is for Mr. Lennox. Bobby, whose jersey did you get at the end of the match? And why did you ask for it? And who did you have to fight to get it?
I had two big heroes when I was a boy, real heroes. Denis was also one of them, and I loved Jimmy Greaves as well. And when the final whistle went, I asked Jimmy Greaves if I could have his jersey. And as I asked him, he said yes. And Jimmy Baxter came jogging across and says, I love your jersey, Greavesy. And he says, I promised it away. So I was really quite pleased. So when we walked back up the tunnel, I had to chat England dressing room door. And Jimmy Greaves was standing waiting to hand me his strip, but the place was like an absolute morgue. I don't think they were very happy, you know.
Jim, I'm really sorry for accusing you of having Jimmy Greaves' shirt, but it was worth it to get back to the place was like a morgue. Second last, manager, what's your pride like, having been the boss of that game? And did you win it? Did the team win it for you with their talent, or listening to these three now and all of us listening to you, was it a triumph for character? You had some wonderful men, some huge character involved that day. Was it more about character, or was it more about the brilliance of the talent?
Well, they all played at the top of their game, really. And at the end of the day, with all the talk about the world champions and what have you, their dander was really up, and that's what produced the result. At the same time, I've got to say that Sir Alf, who was a man of very few words, he was quite fulsome at the end to me, and he said, well done, and he said, I told the team, that was his own team, that it would be a very good team who would beat us, and we've seen that today. Now that's what I carry away from Wembley.
I'm so sorry to bring an end to listening to what I introduced as true greats. And I think each of these four men, irrespective of what they did that day in April at Wembley, have proven tonight not simply what great footballers they are, but what extraordinary, strong, interesting, fun, characterful, proud Scottish men they are. And I need to finish with the King, not simply because he's the King, but because this is really your weekend, Denis. Just two fairly simple ones.
Are you sure?
Well, I'm fairly simple, so why not?
Okay.
One, you had so many fabulous days like that in your life and in your career. But when I spoke to Bobby and Bobby Lennox and Jim today, I was touched by the fact that they still adore you, that you've got great, great friends. And it's all very well to take the mickey out of me and them.
Who be?
Yeah, you.
No way I would do that.
Denis, you're adored.
No.
Now, that goes beyond your playing. Did you try and demonstrate friendship and team mate, ability to people around you? And does friendship matter a great deal once you've finished a career like yours, not simply the trophies?
It's a very complicated question, isn't it?
Overcomplicated answer, right?
What? Do you like me? I like you. You like me? I like you, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. This is getting really deep.
It's our first round of applause, so it was worth it.
Well, you know yourself, football is not about individuals. Football is about a team, and it's players. All right, goal scorers seem to get most of the coverage in the press, but without the rest of the players making those passes for you and making it. So, although it's lovely scoring goals, it is nice to win, and you need a team. And that's where the team, that particular day, we all battled together. We weren't going to let England beat us, and we beat them.
And the last one isn't just simple, Denis, it's a gimme. You're an Aberdonian. Around the world, and I know I live in Spain, around the world, you're associated most with the city of Manchester, either because of United or City. But everybody here knows that you're a proud Aberdonian. And I would ask you, in your life that led to this game and your great exploits, the city of Aberdeen, how you grew up, what you were taught here, did leave a big imprint on you and made you the man and the player that you are? Is that right?
Hopefully, yes. Also, I was very fortunate when I went down to Huddersfield. I'm not going to bore you, but I went down to Huddersfield, and the manager there was an Aberdonian as well. And his assistant was a guy called Bill Shankly. And Andy Beattie went to another team, and Bill Shankly became a manager. Bill Shankly taught me everything in the football world. I had five years with Bill Shankly. So it's been Scots all around, the players and also the managers, Sir Matt Busby, Bill Shankly, Andy Beattie. So I've been very, very lucky that I've had people like that, Scottish people.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the scent of greatness that night 50 years ago has been with us now as you've listened to these greats. They're still greats. They represent everything that street sport is about. Once they leave the stage, give until you can't give anymore, because your efforts will help street sport create people like them that we'll be proud of. But for the moment, you've been listening to four of the greatest men in sports that this country has ever produced. Jim McCalliog, Denis Law, Bobby Lennox and Bobby Brown.